It's time for the Hockey Writers Grindline, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy The Grind.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Grind Line here at the Hockey Writers. I am your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, I'm joined in by my line mates, Devin Little and Evan Sabourin. We also got Tony Wolak back on the show. We always leave the locker stall open for Tony, and he's back on the show to talk trade deadline, which is coming just around the corner. We are less than a week. What are we? A little more than a week. We are less than a week. I was right the first time. Less than a week from the trade deadline. So lots of stuff could happen in the next week or so. So we have a lot to talk about. First of all, Tony, how's it going?
Going well. It's nice to be back, and excited to talk about some Red Wings hockey, some trade deadline, and anything else you throw at me.
Yeah, we're going to talk some Alex Lyon as well later in the show. But Evan, how's it going?
Not bad, man. My the wife and kid are out of town tonight, so I got the place to myself. I've just been sitting on my ass watching hockey all day. It's the greatest feeling ever. So, although the outcome wasn't what we wanted today, it's still a good day when I get that kind of time.
For sure. And finally, Devin, how's it going?
Yeah, it's a good weekend. Bad start to it, I guess, with today's game, but exciting time, right? Week away from the deadline. Red Wings look to be buyers instead of sellers. It was a good day here in Michigan. Can't complain too much.
Yeah, well, the Red Wings got shut out by the Panthers, which, I mean, they're one of the best teams in the league right now. So not bad to lose to a team like that, but it's always never good to lose. So getting shut out and being outshot 37-21, not the best. But we'll get to some positive stuff in this show. I'm sure. So let's start with our one good, one bad, as we always start our show with. And we'll start with you, Tony. What's a good and a bad from this past week?
All right. So good. In my day job, I do marketing for a living, and one of my radio ads went live today, and I heard it today, and I thought that was awesome. My wife said I was beaming when I heard it on the radio, so that was pretty fun. And then the bad was, the game, the Red Wings Panthers game. The Red Wings ended up playing the Panthers game, their style, and it just didn't suit them, and they ended up losing. And you hate to see that, but I guess it's a good learning lesson.
Yeah, especially, like I say, it's a good measuring stick game too against one of the best teams in the league. So, we'll see what they have to fix, and they'll move forward from there. Go with you, Evan, next. What's good and a bad?
Man, I'm tired of all these measuring stick games right before the trade deadline, man. They go the way the Red Wings want them to, Looking back last year to Ottawa and then today, I mean, Red Wings really showed today that the Red Wings are struggling. The forecheck they were all over them today. And, I don't think that's a team they can compete with right now. That's what I took away from today's game. Still giving up too many shots. So that was not good, and this 2-game losing streak, I still think we're fine, but it's, I think it might come down to the wiring. It might get closer than we want it to be down at the end here. Mm-hmm. My good this week, Devin tweeted out something after the Capitals game after we pumped in 8 goals, and he got a shout out on Twitter and some other podcasts names I won't mention, but he said it was great that the Red decided to honor Ovechkin by pumping in 8 goals on the Capitals, and that was a fun game to watch. So good stuff.
And Devin, a good and a bad there for you.
I'm flattered. My one good is actually going to be, despite the loss, just the playoff atmosphere of the game against the Panthers. And I think there's been a couple of games recently where there's just that added level of intensity there. And I think that's great because, there's a lot of guys on the Red Wings roster that have either never been to the playoffs or have very minimal experience. So it's a good thing to start to, ramp up that intensity and kind of get a taste of what it's going to be like because the playoffs are a real possibility this year. And it's probably a good thing to kind kind of know what they're getting themselves into before, game one, right? So good to see that atmosphere and have it actually mean something for the first time this decade. So, yeah, but then one bad, going to be just the fact that, they've lost back-to-back games now. That there's going to be some people out there that are going to be quick to hit the panic button. It was late February, early March last year that the wheels started to fall off and Yzerman started to sell and things went south in a hurry. But I don't think that's going to be this year's team, but obviously off of a 6-game win streak. It's a bummer to now have seen them lose back-to-back games, and especially to be shut out on home ice in today's game.
Yeah, I was saying the Panthers are one of the best. They are the best team in the league right now. They are number one with 86 points. And right now, the Red Wings would avoid them in the first round because they would play the Lightning. Red Wings would right now be playing the New York Rangers in the first round, which...
Original 6, baby.
Yeah, that would be a pretty good series, although that's far from solidified since they are only 2 points ahead of the Lightning. They could very well end up being playing the top team in the East. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about a potential playoff matchup at the end of the show, maybe. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting the next few weeks. And on that note, let's talk about the next week, which is going to be the trade deadline. And I mean, I don't know when all these trades will happen. There's sometimes a bunch of activity happens in the last week and the day before, and all of a sudden the deadline has nothing happening on the day, which happens quite often. A lot of the big deals happen beforehand, but we'll see what happens. I want to talk about the deadline, and first we'll talk about strategy for the Red Wings because they are in a playoff spot with 72 points, like you said, in the first wild card spot. So first, we've talked a lot about buyers, sellers. I'll start with you, Tony, since you haven't been on the show in a while. I get your thoughts on it. Is what should the Red Wings strategy be going into this deadline? Because they are borderline on a buyer seller. I mean, right now you're in the playoffs, so I would think they'd be buying. But what should Yzerman's strategy be going in?
Yeah, so my opinion on the Red Wings strategy is I think you would call it like passive buyers. I don't think the Red Wings should be dangling their first or second round draft picks or their top 8 to 10 prospects right now. And that's like there are holes in this roster. The defense could be better. Maybe more insurance than net would be great, and of course some more depth up front would be nice as well. But it's just the time of year that makes me think that being a passive buyer would be the best strategy. I said this earlier in the week. You get more bang for your buck during the offseason around the draft when it comes to trades. If there's only a few sellers in the market right now, they're going to be controlling prices, and it's going to be way more than you'd expect to pay for a comparable asset over the summer. So just add around the fringes. They got a good thing going right now. Yes, they've lost 2 in a row, but in the grand scheme of things, this team is scoring, and their defense is a bend don't break strategy, but it's not breaking all that often. So just don't mortgage the future. I think we learned that a long time ago. So that's just my overview.
Yeah, it's like I say, we've talked about the buyers sellers. I mean, it's going to be interesting because Yzerman last season, well, by that time it was sellers, and he just started selling off some pieces. This is a lot closer. I think by the deadline last year, they were pretty far out of the playoff picture, and everyone was wondering, what is he going to do? And then he traded Hronek at the deadline, and for a first round pick. And he's like, okay, we're starting there. He's going to start selling. And then Bertuzzi, I believe Bertuzzi was before that. So it's like he started doing that. I don't think this year he'll do that because they are a lot closer and they are a lot more of a chance of being in the playoffs because they are quite a few points ahead of the Washington Capitals, who is in the next spot. So yeah, Evan, I'll go to you on this one. Focus. I mean, what should Yzerman be focusing on going to the deadline? Because like Tony said, they could use forward depth. They could use some more on defense. The goaltending's not completely solidified. If you were Yzerman, what would you be focusing on at the deadline before March 8th?
Well, I think I got to agree with Tony on this one, and I don't want to, mortgage anything right now at this point. Again, I'm very interested, and I don't think right now there's any clear indication of what's going to happen with Jonathan Bergeron. That's the number one thing I'm interested in to see, because if they do end up trading him, that could be a valuable asset brought to this team. But again, I don't think it was interesting to hear Emily Kaplan's report today during the game, where she said she had asked the GM what they expected Yzerman to do, and they said something. She came back and said the GM had said something big. But I don't think he can make that move, especially watching these last two games. The team, I just don't think it's ready yet for the big buyer move yet. I think they're still a year or two away from that. But right now, they've managed to exceed all expectations this season so far. If we saw what spot they were, if we knew this at the beginning of the year, we would gladly accept and take this as a very successful season. Patrick Kane has only ramped it up a little more for all of us and got us all super giddy every week. And, it's been exciting times. It's been a long playoff drought for the Red Wings, but I don't think now is the time to make a big splash. I definitely don't, the Gensel rumors I just don't think that's the right move. And I don't think Yzerman's in on that yet, but we're going to find out real quickly here. But I think Jonathan Bergeron's the main piece that I'm ready to see what happens there, because it looks like he might be gone.
Mm-hmm.
On the Gensel note, real quick, I do think that on deadline day, for whoever is still on the board for the top trade targets, there's going to be a tweet or two from insiders saying something along the lines of hearing Yzerman is checking in on insert name. Yeah. And then everyone's going to quote tweet that with the eyes emojis, myself included, probably. But it's going to be him doing his due diligence. And if the price is too high, the price is too high. It's the same thing that happened last year when it was rumored that the Red Wings were looking into James Van Riemsdyk.
And wasn't he a Red Wing for a quick second or something on Twitter?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if whether it's Gensel or Buchnevich or you name it. There's going to be one or two tweets out there from the insiders that are saying that Yzerman is checking in on this player, and then Twitter's going to explode for a minute, and then maybe it'll die out. Maybe, who knows? We'll see what happens.
Devin's the one that's going to make those tweets too. I can already.
Yeah. All right. Well, going over to you, Devin. It's interesting the targets that have been talked about with the Red Wings. That, like you say, Gensel's been one of them. Who's the ideal target for you? I mean, it's like you say, is it the big move? Is it a smaller one to kind of add some grit for the playoffs? Who would you be targeting at the deadline? What the targets that are out there at this point?
Well, before I answer that question, I remembered one more bad I wanted to throw out there, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention it. So, ever since the Red Wings put a waste management company sticker on their jersey, they've been playing like garbage. So, yeah, I don't like seeing the best jersey in all of sports being defaced, but it is what it is. Hockey's a business. Let's move on. Who's their best trade target? I especially after seeing them play against the Panthers, right? I really think they need not just help on the blue line, but somebody who can just another rugged guy. I know I've been getting pinged a lot with people telling me they need to get Radko Gudas from the Anaheim Ducks. I think he's the type of player they need to get. I don't know if he is specifically the guy they need to go get. But he definitely fits the mold. What they need is, I think there's gonna be a lot of people who think they need to get sandpaper. They need to be a tougher team to play against, right? I think because my thing with that is they have those guys. They have Klim Kostin on the team, but he doesn't play because he doesn't do a whole lot other than beat people up. In today's NHL, you can't just beat people up unless you're Matt Remp from or whatever his name is from the Rangers, and that is all he does. But he's doing a good job for what it's worth. But we're not talking about the Rangers. No, what they need a Brendan Shanahan type of player, a guy who is willing to drop the gloves and can play that style of game, but then also puts up 40 goals, right? I talked some time ago about how in a perfect world they'd get a Matthew Tkachuk type of player, but those players just aren't out there, right? I think ultimately what they need to do, I agree with what's been said already. I don't think they should be investing big time pieces on this year's team. I just don't think this is a cup caliber team. But they should add pieces to give themselves a real shot at making the playoffs. And I think that's doable. I think they'll be able to find cheap depth out there. And ideally what that depth looks like is players that can play a variety of roles, but also add a degree of toughness to their lineup, because it's pretty clear after today's game that is something that they can't necessarily go up against when the opposition has that level of sandpaper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's something they do need. And there are a few names out there that could potentially fit that. But what is Yzerman willing to spend for first round picks, top prospects, Jonathan Berggren, young players like that? He's got the assets to do this. He can throw a big package for Jake Guentzel. I mean, he's got it. He's got what's needed. But the question is, should he do that? And that's the thing, especially for a guy like Guentzel, who's a rental. He is definitely a rental. I don't know. I mean, a lot of teams are going to want an extension in place. I'm not sure that's happening. Just like Elias Lindholm didn't get an extension before he was traded. I don't think Gentzel's getting one either. It just doesn't happen very often. DeBrincat, it was an off-season thing though. DeBrincat signed the extension, traded to the Red Wings. So I mean, it's not something I'm trying to remember the last time it actually happened before a deadline where it was done. Horvat would have been one. Yeah. So I mean, it doesn't happen very often. It did happen recently, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Yzerman, because we're not sure. I mean, he seems to surprise every time with what he does, and he's probably going to do it again. All right. Well, before we move on, anyone else have anything you kind of want to add on this deadline discussion before I throw out some targets? See your thoughts on a few names here.
Yeah, I mentioned Jack Roslovic in an article this week as a target. Derek Lalonde mentioned earlier, I don't know if it was sometime last month on a radio appearance, that he wants another versatile forward. I think Roslovic fits that bill, and I think that would allow the Red Wings to move back to it's more of a checking third line. And then, not that he doesn't it's tough because Joe Veleno's played great, but he's the Red Wings are better off when he's the fourth line center. And it's you want to reward him for playing well, and that's playing further up in the lineup. But we saw today, they didn't really play their fourth line very much. And, if he's there playing, or centering Christian Fischer and either Fabry or Sprong or what have you, then that gives the Red Wings four good lines again. And then if Roslovic joins the third line with Andrew Kopp and Perron or Rasmussen, that's again it could be an effective checking line. So it's not a marquee name or anything, but I don't think it would cost the Red Wings too much to acquire a player of his caliber. And I think with his speed and with his ability to play the penalty kill, he'd fit right in.
Yeah, Roslovic hasn't really fit in Columbus. I not at all. I mean, he may have had a first maybe half a season where he looked like he should belong there, but just hasn't really fit. And you can argue he probably didn't really fit in Winnipeg either. So he's still trying to find his team, I guess. And we'll see where he goes, because he is definitely on the block for Columbus for sure.
Tony brings up a good point, though. These kind of players, these guys are the kind of guys that could be had without giving up much. So I kind of like that area too. My thought process, and I've written in articles in the past couple of weeks, is that I'm a big fan of the Marcus Pettersson over in Pittsburgh. I think he could be had for a reasonable price, and I definitely think the Pens are probably going to start selling. But yeah, I don't think I can't see him going out and making a big move. I think it's the fringe. I think it's the fringe that Tony just brought up, where you're getting a player, but you're not going to give up much assets to just give you some forward depth amongst the checking line as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And then for just my little input here as well, one thing that stood out to me that Coach Derek Lalonde said prior to the game today was how, one, he believes that Simon Edvinsson is very, very close to the NHL. And also how he also remarked on the idea that the Red Wings could feasibly remove some players and get better by bringing up an Edvinsson or a Berggren. So that, I mean, that idea is out there, right? I still think that when push comes to shove, Yzerman's going to go the traditional route of bringing in a rental and going about it that way and letting the kids push the Griffins down in the AHL. But there's a lot of reports out there that Justin Hall's on the trade block. Yzerman's looking to move him out. I've seen some stuff about Gostisbehere as well. If they move those guys out, you can make a very strong argument, in my opinion, that bringing Edvinsson up makes the team better. And we've obviously been saying on the show for a while now that Edvinsson should be on the team. So it'd be quite the twist of fate and maybe unexpected to have Edvinsson be their trade deadline acquisition. Very Ken Holland-esque, where our guy getting our guy back or whatever is our trade deadline pickup. But no, literally, if that's all they do is they get rid of somebody and bring up Edvinsson, I think would make the team better.
For sure.
Wouldn't address their biggest need, but hey.
I wouldn't trade Gostisbehere at this point. I think that's telling the team you're not going for the playoffs.
I agree.
Fit in well in offensively. But I don't see him being moved. But I mean, if Yzerman could go back, I think if Yzerman had a choice to go back and take one deal back that he's made in the past 3 years, I'm beginning to think it's not the Cop. I'm beginning to think it's the Justin Hall, because he's barely even played.
Yeah.
The thing with that though is, I don't know if the Red Wings anticipated. Probably not, but like Jeff Petrie became available like right before training camp, and I think in the ideal world, Hull was playing, in Petrie's place this season, but things changed. But I agree, it doesn't seem like it's been a fit, and like I don't know, I'm on the same page as Evan here, though, that I don't know, maybe a change of scenery might be best for Hull. I didn't think it'd be possible, but like the more digging I did into it, when I was looking at Zach Bogosian as just an insurance on defense, Derek Lalonde knows him, possible trade. Justin Hull's from Minnesota, Bogosian's on Minnesota, and the right side is Faber and Spurgeon, and then no one else really. So I don't know, Hull mid-round sweetener for Bogosian, win-win, maybe. I don't know, just worth a thought.
Food for thought.
Yeah, that'd be an underrated move too, I think, because Bogosian been really good in the playoffs for Tampa in the past. So yeah, that'd be one to watch for sure. All right, I'm gonna throw out some targets, and these are just gonna be some quick ones. Yes or no, quick why. Don't draw it out too much. But I'll start with you, Evan. Noah Hannafin.
Damn, that's a tough one. I just, again, I think he's gonna be one of the, he's gonna be a top target for a lot of teams that are farther in the process than the Red Wings are. So I don't see that one happening. I wrote an article about it a couple weeks ago. It's definitely intriguing, depending what you could sign him to. But I think there's a lot of teams that are much closer and more desperate for that kind of defenseman. I'm thinking he might be a great replacement in Tampa for Sergachev, and I could see him ending up there. But I'm not on that boat yet. I think there's too much money to be locked up with Raymond and Sider this summer, and we got other kids coming. I'm not on the Hannafin train anymore.
He's definitely a rental, I think, for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
Right, Tony. You next. Jake Allen.
No, if the Red Wings are going to go for a goalie, I think it needs to be someone more long term than Jake Allen. That's a lateral move from Billy Husso, in my opinion, and they might as well wait for him to get healthy.
Sure. Right, Devin. Nick Seeler.
Ooh, he does fit the type of defenseman that they should maybe target, and I don't know that he would cost too much. Now here's the thing. I have heard his name out there. He does seem like he's gaining a lot of traction league wide. I don't think Yzerman's going to put himself in a position where he has to outbid several other teams to get a guy. So if it gets to that point, then no. But in a vacuum, yeah, I think that actually fits pretty well.
Sure. All right, one each more for each of you. Tony, I'll go. Let's see. Tyler Toffoli.
Ooh. Now that I think what I'm thinking the sort of the same thing as what Devin was just sharing here. In a vacuum, great addition. The Red Wings right now, no, it doesn't make sense. Price is too high. They already got Perron and Fabry and Kane and DeBrincat. Like they need, I don't know, maybe a more defensively inclined forward, maybe more of a power forward type. I think they have a Tyler Toffoli on their team already, as great as he is.
I don't think New Jersey wants to help us anyway. They're
No.
Yeah.
No, for sure. All right, Evan, I got one. Jordan Eberle.
Jordan Eberle, he's on the wrong side of 30 for me. I mean, I think we have those role players already. That secondary scoring so far. I mean, we do lead, we are fourth in the league in goals. And yeah, I'm not a Jordan Eberle guy. That was not for me. Maybe 10 years ago, but
Yeah.
not present day Jordan Eberle guy.
No, for sure. And Devin, Vladimir Tarasenko.
Oh, geez. No, it would be fun, right? A lot of the same reasons a week or two ago when I said Gensel would be kind of fun because he would kind of pull together the top six. I think Tarasenko would do a lot of the same things. But Tarasenko is not the same Tarasenko that you think of when you think of him. You typically think of like 2018, 2019 Tarasenko. He's kind of a different player nowadays. And I don't know that Ottawa is necessarily looking to do the Red Wings any favors. So ultimately, I think it's going to be a no on that one.
Especially after they traded DeBrincat.
Yeah.
All right, I'll have another round at the end of the show. So before we get to our second half of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about Alex Lyon. But before we do that, I'm going to talk about our Substack here at the Hockey Writers. Great newsletter you'll get 3 times a week with all the best Red Wings articles at the Hockey Writers into your inbox. I also got the premium tier, which gives you game day previews, lots of prospect reports, lots of other exclusive articles there at the premium side of it, but you can take a look at that in the link below. All right, well, let's move on and talk about Alex Lyon, who is their number 1 goaltender. He's been that way for a while, and he's played a lot. He played a ton in the last couple months. So definitely the workhorse for the Red Wings right now. I'll start with you, Tony. Are you worried about this workload that he's got? Because it's not like he's used to this type of being workhorse goaltender, especially with the playoffs coming around, because he will be the starter to start it. How would you handle it if you were Lalonde? Would you keep playing him like that, like how he is? I mean, yes, the playoffs are definitely not a for sure thing. You want your best goaltender in, but what would you do?
Derek Lalonde's in a tough situation. Earlier in the year, I guess most notably in December, James Reimer, was thrust into the starting role when Ville Husso and Alex Lyon were out, and he just was not up to the task. And it is what it is there, but that leaves us with Alex Lyon while Husso is on the mend. I am not overly concerned with his workload. He played just over, looks like a little over 2,200 minutes last year and is still in the 1,700 range this year. And I guess last year was between the AHL and the NHL, and that didn't even include the playoffs for minutes. So while he's playing more NHL games this year than in the past, the workload, the minutes, the strain on his body, like he has played at that capacity at various levels throughout his career. So I'm not overly concerned. That said, if he hits a wall at some point, then that's a problem. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, he's earned it. He's earned the starting role, and give Reimer some starts here and there when you think Lyon needs a mental break. There's a few games coming up that come to mind for Reimer, but until then, Alex Lyon's earned it, and I'm not overly concerned with his workload.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if Yzerman had a crystal ball or something. Them sitting him out for so long, or Lalonde, or one of them, sitting him out at the beginning of the season. We're like, why isn't he in the net? Maybe they knew something. I don't know.
I will say, I will say though that once Husso is healthy again, he deserves the opportunity to reclaim the starting role. I think at that point you're starting to pick and choose your starter depending on the matchups, depending on historical, data against the players that they're playing against. And if Husso reclaims a starting role heading into the playoffs, great. He's rested, that's for sure. But if Lyon seizes the opportunity again, then good for him. Keep rolling with him.
Could Husso be the Bobrovsky of
yeah, there you go.
That's what happened. Lyon started the playoffs, and then Bobrovsky came in, and all the rest is history. So yeah, I don't know. All right, Evan, what do you think about this? About Lyon's workload here?
Well, I wouldn't be concerned with his workload if we could maybe package Berger in this year's first round pick and a mid-level prospect, maybe a third too. Third for UC Saros.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
If these this is what those GMs are talking about, that they think Yzerman's going to do something big, and UC Saros could come in here, and that would be really something. I still think Kosa's a year and a half away, so.
Yeah,
that would be my number one thing. But no, I'm not concerned with Alex Lyon. I'm not as optimistic as Tony about Ville Husso. It hasn't been a fit, it seems like, with this team. The first game back, and there's no timeline in sight of when he's coming back. So it's going to be tough for me to believe in Husso. But I mean, Lyon hasn't played a lot of minutes. Tony brought up a good point, but he's not used to starter minutes. But again, last year down the stretch, he, put Florida into the playoffs technically with that 9-game stretch he had. So I'm not worried about the workload, but I am worried about our backup. So Reimer has played decent the last few games, but it's James Reimer. It's not sustainable for him. So I mean, if even if it's a secondary goalie, Yzerman can find at the trade deadline, like Mackenzie Blackwood, I think he just got hurt though. I don't know. I'm not worried about Lyon's workload though.
All right, Devin, do you agree with Tony and Evan? Are you not worried about the workload that Lyon's facing right now?
Well, maybe it's lingering PTSD from like the last 2 seasons or so, but I am a little worried, right? Because it almost feels like they're following the same pattern, right? They brought in Nedeljkovic, who had never really been a starter before 2 years ago. Expected him to tandem with Thomas Greiss. Greiss didn't hold up his end of the bargain. Nedeljkovic had to really carry the brunt of the load, and he fizzled out towards the end of the year. Next season, which was last season, they bring in Husso. They're expecting him to tandem with Ned. Ned doesn't hold up his end of the bargain, and Husso was great to start, fizzled out at the end of the year, and things fall apart. Here we are this season, right? Bring in Reimer, bring in Lyon, expect them to kind of be a 3-headed monster with Husso. What happens? Husso doesn't hold up his end of the bargain. Alex Lyon comes in roaring out of the gate. Sorry about the Lion pun, but it worked. And he's doing great. Does he fizzle out at the end? That's what the pattern suggests, right? Yeah. But I do like Tony's point about, yes, he's never played this many games in the NHL before, but that doesn't mean he's never played this amount of minutes before. Even going back to his back to the 2018-19 season, he was in the Philadelphia Flyers organization. He technically played 41 games that year. Most of it was in the AHL. Those are minutes too, right? Going back to even just this past season, he 38 games. Geez, I can't talk. 38 games plus playoff games on top of that. He's definitely played more minutes than he's played this season. But he's never been needed to be the guy at the NHL level. I think as we get deeper into this month and the playoffs get closer and closer, it's gonna be crunch time, right? Pressure's gonna be on a lot of players, but especially the starting goaltender. There's that old thing about how the most popular guy in Detroit sports is the backup goaltender. I know Evans referenced that before.
The Lions quarterback and the Detroit Red Wings starting goaltender.
Exactly, and that's why they chant Jared Goff's names during Red Wings game, right? Maybe they got to start chanting James Reimer's names, but that's a whole other thing. But yeah, no. If we get to a point, I guess what I'm saying with this is I'm cautiously optimistic about Lyon. He's had the workload before. He's clearly been the Red Wings' best goalie this year. If anyone's earned the opportunity to run with the starting gig this season, it's him. But man, I have to hope that Reimer either proves he can be a steady backup when they need him. He's done, like Evan said, he's done pretty good recently, but he's definitely proven earlier this season that he is not prime James Reimer anymore. And Ville Husso can't stay healthy this year. So if he gets back, hopefully he stays healthy and hopefully he gets back to the level he was at prior. But that's not a given, right? It would be a real shame if the Red Wings had all this firepower. They bring in a defenseman to really round out their blue line, and then Alex Lyon just kind of falls apart because he has never had to do all of this before. He's never had to be the go-to guy. It'd be a real shame if goaltending is what undoes them. But yeah, I guess all we can do is hope for the best and continue to cheer on Lyon because he's earned it.
One other thing to point out is that um, as far as games played goes, going back to the 2021-22 season, between the NHL, the AHL, and the AHL playoffs, he played 44 games, and that included a Calder Cup championship. So
Hey,
he is used to the impact minutes, and you know, I personally think he can handle it. I think there should be some workload management, but he's the starter, and at least 2/3 of the games moving forward should be him starting.
Yeah, that's going to be a story to watch because when you get to the playoffs, you usually ride one goaltender. I mean, most of the time, and that's what happens. Unless the Florida Panthers, they did change halfway through that series in Boston, but that was because they were down and they were hoping that something would happen, and Bobrovsky stepped up and did it. So it doesn't always happen, and most of the time it's one goalie and they kind of ride him. So they're gonna have to pick one, I think, and try to do it. So we'll see if that's going to be Alex Lyon, and looking like that's what's going to be unless they do bring in someone else. But I don't really see one that's going to be better than Lyon. Like you said, Tony, with Jake Allen, it's not really a difference. So we'll see. All right, we'll finish this off with a couple off the rush with a couple more targets here, and then I'll ask about a playoff matchup. But I'll start with you, Evan. Well, let's see. Andrew Peeke from the Blue Jackets. I know he hasn't been good this season, but he has been good in the past.
Yeah, that's not a move that's gonna do it for me either. I'm not sure that's a big mover on the scale for me. I'm gonna go a hard pass on that guy.
Yeah, for sure. Tony, Joel Edmondson.
I would like if the Red Wings got Joel Edmondson, but since they already have Sherratt and Petrie and Hull and Mata, it's kind of redundant at that point. So unless a player was moved out, I just don't think there's a need.
Sure. This is one name, Devin, that I've heard, and it's Matt Dumba.
So just personally, I'm not a huge Matt Dumba fan. I almost feel like he asked the wrong guy. So no. But I see the appeal, right? I think that there will be a team that is excited by what he can bring to the table, and I don't know that he'll cost a whole lot. But I don't know that he is that much of an improvement over some of the guys they already have.
Mm-hmm. All right, Evan, I'll see if you I've given you one, so you're like, no way. Let's see. Go Scott Lawton.
Scott Lawton in Philly.
No.
That's interesting, but I'm curious that I'm not sure if the Flyers are going to sell right now. That's the only thing I wouldn't see. But Scott Lawton's, yeah, he's more of a needle mover than Andrew Peeke. Way more so for me. I want to throw one back at you though, Zator, and I brought this up on our Slack channel this week at work. What about Anthony Mantha? Reunion with Mantha.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, he's been scoring. He's on a 20-goal pace, 25 goals this year. He's been scoring recently too. And there's that familiarity.
There you go. That was the one I was going to give to Tony next. So Anthony Mantha.
Is that your way of going, Tony? Answer that for me.
That was my
Yeah.
next one. I'm honestly,
Great transition.
you don't
Remember
know if I'm lying, but
Anthony Mantha on a 20-goal pace 5 years ago would have been so infuriating to the entire Red Wings fan base. Now it's like, not bad, not bad. I mean, he would fit. I think he'd be a good, second line player for the Red Wings. It kind of just goes back to what I was saying earlier about just not mortgaging the future. The Red Wings still need their top draft picks, their top prospects at this point. If they're able to acquire Mantha or anyone else that's not giving up a ton in return, like that's the kind of deal for right now. Maybe next year will be different, offseason will be different, but at this point, the Red Wings need their picks. They need their prospects. Save them for a time when, they're worth more in the market relative to the seller's market that we see right now.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that's a yes or a no, but
I was straight away. I'm like, wait, what? So what's he saying?
that's the politician's answer there.
It depends on the cost.
All right, Devin. I know this is probably going to be an interesting one, maybe. Jacob Markstrom.
Oh, geez. Well, first off, I think if anyone's gonna get him, it's New Jersey. I think they
Yes.
have all the incentive in the world to go get him.
Yeah.
I think he kind of ticks the box, right, of solidifying their crease a bit more. So I definitely see the appeal. But I think, again, in a vacuum, yeah, for sure. But in the real world context here, I think that they would be in a direct bidding war with New Jersey, and I think New Jersey is going to want him way more than the Red Wings will. And to Tony's point, then you're probably having to give up a first or a really good prospect, or maybe a combination of both. And I don't know that makes sense at this time for the Red Wings. So yes, but no.
Yes, but no. Yeah, it's though. I think those are going to be. I mean, UC Saros is probably a more. I don't know if it's realistic, but more likely than Markstrom.
Didn't Kuznetsov get released today too?
Waived, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think they're bringing that problem into the locker room.
No.
Oh yeah, no, that's
Rana saga.
Yep.
I don't know if they're gonna go down that road again.
No.
Absolutely. I will say if there is a move out there that, like, I think Yzerman would maybe feel comfortable with trading the first and the prospects and all that stuff. It's a legitimate, like, needle mover, like a UC Saros. Maybe not UC Saros specifically, but that caliber of player. Those players aren't always available, right? So if you have the opportunity to get them, they don't come cheap.
I see Saros moving in the next season or so because Askarov sure looks great in the AHL.
Yeah, absolutely.
He looked good in his first NHL game too. So I think he's the next one. And Saros has got a couple seasons left on his contract.
Do you do that deal? A first round pick, this year's first round pick, which will be probably in the mid-20s or early teens, mid-20s. Him, Bergeron, and maybe a B prospect for Saros. Does Nashville do that?
Does Nashville do it? That's the question.
Yeah.
To recap, a first, Bergeron, a mid-level prospect, maybe throw in a third. I don't know.
Probably got to throw in like Reimer or something for salary cap too.
I mean, he's only signed through next season, so
yeah,
that's a lot. I mean, I get it. It's UC Saros. He's an outstanding goalie, like 100%, full stop. He's an outstanding goalie. But if you're going to be trading a first and Bergeron and more, I would think that you'd want more term with that. But I don't know. It's UC Saros. He's great. So.
Yeah.
When you think about it, though, I mean, the Red Wings seem to have their core already, figured out, developed. It's now it's time to add the big parts
for sure,
and through free agency, the parts that you can't draft. So You know, when you think about the core of Larkin, DeBrincat, Sider, Raymond, you know, hopefully Edvinson,
Mhm.
big things for Casper, Carter Mazer. You know, that's a pretty solid foundation that the Red Wings have to build upon. You know, and I just don't think I think we all know that Costa probably needs one more year in Grand
Mhm.
Rapids, maybe two. But if you could pull something like that for UC Saros, I would definitely be interested because he's a game changer. He's the kind of guy that the Red Wings could maybe sneak a playoff round win in the playoffs with. So I'd be thrilled to see something like that. But again, I don't see. I'm not sure a big move's on the horizon yet. I think Yzerman likes the team chemistry right now with the way the guys have come together these past 2 months. So yeah, I don't see it, but I'd like it.
I think the biggest consideration with that is the goalie prospects they have. If you bring in Saros, you're almost like guaranteeing that you're slow playing Kosa and Augustine for a while, right? You're not bringing in Saros for a year. You're hopefully bringing him in for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? Now, on the other hand, that does allow you to slow play them, and
Yeah.
Lord knows that they've wanted to do that. They're very comfortable with slow playing their goalie prospects. So, on one hand, it almost kind of sends a weird message about them and their future with the franchise, but it also would permit them to take their time with them. So it's interesting to think about for sure.
Yeah.
Because you don't think Kosa would start right away. You're right. He probably needs another year in the AHL, safely speaking. But then after that, he's probably not the starting goalie for the Red Wings immediately.
Backup, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like phase him in, like maybe straight up backup or 1B, and then over time he takes over. And I mean, yes, UC Saros, even John Gibson, like I wouldn't mind it. It's definitely interesting to think about if bringing in a goalie like Saros to help solidify the Red Wings in the short term. But again, it just comes down to price and what else you could be getting for that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, the goaltending's interesting. I was just as to finish this off, I was just updating the goaltender prospects top 10, and Augustine and Kosa are Kosa is 4 and Augustine's 5. So
It's a good time to be a Red Wings fan.
so Augustine's having a heck of a season in the NCAA. So playing a ton for a freshman. I mean, he's doing pretty well. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play their goalies, because those two guys are definitely the future. I don't know if they're going to be a tandem at some point, but that'd be a pretty good 1A, 1B if both pan out to what they're supposed to be. So yeah, interesting times and the goaltending. We'll see what the Red Wings do. All right, last question before we close out the show. Now, I mentioned them being in the spot of playing the Rangers. They also play the Panthers. Right now, we'll say those are the two because there's a lot of possibilities. Who would you want in the first round for the Red Wings? I'll start with you, Tony.
I think we should also include the Bruins in there.
We'll start. Yeah, they're flip-flopping between them.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I'm a big history fan, so I want the Rangers. The Red Wings haven't played the Rangers in the playoffs since 1950. You know what happened then, too? The Red Wings won the Stanley Cup. No, I just think, the original 6 matchup, that'll be fun. The Red Wings have played the Rangers pretty decently, minus that one game this year. But that will be a fun matchup. You have two great arenas for these original 6 teams. And just seeing the Red Wings back in the playoffs and seeing LCA rocking will be incredible. But between the Panthers, Bruins, and Rangers, let's go with the Rangers. That's a fun matchup.
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty good too. Devin, what about you? Who would you want from those 3 teams?
I agree with the Rangers. Not just because it's like Tony just said, it's been like over 70 years since they played the Rangers. That's insane.
Yeah.
this goes to show how welcome their move to the Eastern Conference is. Holy cow. But also it's an original six thing, right? Like that's awesome. And I know you can lump the Bruins in there too, but they've played the Bruins within the last 10 years in the playoffs. So it's not as cool as that Rangers fun fact
Yeah.
there. And then also for what it's worth, we literally just saw the Red Wings play the Panthers and we saw what happened. So
Yes.
unless they figure out how they can kind of counterpunch the Panthers, they don't seem like they're a good matchup for the Red Wings. And if we want the Red Wings to at least have a fair shot in the first round, I think the Rangers might be a better matchup for them.
Evan, you agree? Rangers?
No, I'm taking Boston, man. Not just like who doesn't like beating Boston? Come on, it's Boston. I think that's probably their better matchup too, as far as Boston's been struggling a little bit lately, and I
sure.
just that this is the right time with them, especially with the success that the Detroit's had against them the past 2 seasons. But Florida's a wagon, man. Get out of that one. That was. They got a little manhandled today with that Florida forecheck, which was really impressive. I mean, they really put the Wings, made the Wings struggle to get the puck out of their zone today. But yeah, I'd rather see Boston. Who doesn't want to see Brad Marchand get his ass kicked by somebody?
Yeah.
It's just the drama. Trade for Bertuzzi, bring him back, and then that'll be great.
There you go.
Bertuzzi going against Boston, that'd be outstanding. I'd rather see Boston. I think the Rangers, the Rangers, Shesterkin's just starting to find his game right now, and they could be a dangerous playoff team come June. So we'll see.
Yeah.
The cool thing about a matchup with the Bruins is that the Red Wings could feasibly kind of control their fate with the DeBrincat trade because they owe one of their first round picks and they have theirs and Boston's to Ottawa's. So they're going to give them the lower one, of course. And if they defeat Boston, they can kind of be like, hey, you're probably going to get ours instead. But just kind of a fun fact there.
There you go. Yeah, well, the Bruins are 2 points back of the Panthers in the division. It's kind of weird to think about just quickly is that the Bruins would be so much worse without that loser point. 14 points out of that thing. Like, geez. They'd be so far out of it.
Okay, now that you've said that, I changed my answer. I need to play the Bruins. I'm with Evan.
Let's do it. All right. Yeah. It's just, that loser point. I hate it. I just feel like it's just, it's just, I don't think it'll ever go away, but that's how it goes. All right. Well, there's another episode of the Grind Line. Thanks, Tony, for joining us again. Hopefully we'll get you on a bit more for the next, into the playoffs, because our playoff preview will definitely have you on if that happens. When that happens. But
there you go.
All right. Well, thanks, Devin. Thanks, Evan, for joining again. Make sure checking out all of our writing at thehockeywriters.com, our Substack, which gives you the premium tier, as well as the free version, which gives you articles 3 times a week of all the best articles of the Hockey Writers. And we'll see if Yzerman robs the team like Kevin put out there. Keeps going here. But we'll have to wait and see, because I think he has a surprise up his sleeve. We'll see what happens. But by the time we meet next time, it will be, what are we on, man? We could be recording on the deadline if we choose to do our regular recording. I think we will, because it'll be after the deadline when we record. So we'll see what happens. So we'll see you right after the deadline. Until next time, we'll see you on another episode of The Grind Line.